What is going on, alpha males, as we get ready for this weekend? Hopefully a good, restful Sabbath for all of us. It's a shall. 6 days you shall labor, and the 7th day you shall rest. And I know that rest for a lot of people means movies. And I think that's great. One of the very earliest episodes of Alpha Male Podcast, way back in 2018, and in fact, the very first guest I ever had on the show. Manliest movies ever. Now, this was back in 2018, so there's movies that have come out since then. But if you're looking for a good classic movie, a good manly movie, myself and the guest give some of their top picks for the manliest movies. Again, this is a recast. A brand new episode of Gunfighter Life came out this morning, so if you want new content, there you go. But this is not to replace that, but in addition to. If you're looking for a good manly movie for this weekend, hopefully you'll enjoy this older episode, because I know by God's grace we have a lot of new listeners since 2018. With that, I hope you enjoy. Have a blessed weekend. My name is Michael Melito. First and foremost, I'm a Christian. That influences everything I do, including this podcast. So keep in mind, I come at this from a Christian perspective. I'm also a Marine Corps veteran, a combat veteran, Iraq War veteran. Also served in the LAPD for several years, so have some law enforcement under my belt. And right now I'm currently in another branch of the Armed Forces, and I am a full-time firearms instructor for one of the 3-letter government agencies. That's as specific as I'm going to get about that because it's my job, and don't disclose too much about that. But that's kind of our little resume for about being men, being alpha males. So today's episode is going to be about manly movies. Just like we talked about in the last episode, I introduced that this episode was going to be a special one about manly movies. So today, we're going to discuss the manliest movies of all time, period. Alright, so since Steve Halverson is our guest today, we are going to let him go through his picks of the top manly movies, and then we'll come back and discuss why he put them on the list.
So, I was asked to do my top 5. I made it top 6 because I just couldn't leave. I couldn't leave a couple of these out. So my list is Rambo, the newest Rambo movie, back for I think 2008.
And it's just titled Rambo, right?
It's just called Rambo, and it's set in Burma.
Yeah,
and
it's a great movie.
Where he rescues some Christian missionaries, the ones that survive anyways.
Not a true story, but based on real events that happen every day.
Correct. Yeah, it is based off of real things. And there's a newsreel at the beginning of the movie that shows some of the horrific crap that's over there. Sylvester Stallone actually wanted to raise awareness of what was happening over there when he made the movie. And the most graphic scenes in the movie were actually based on real stories that he went and interviewed people who went through these horrific things and wrote their stories down. And tried to make it as real to what they said as possible. So, nice. Like the ways that they infiltrated the villages, the ways that they tortured the people, and so forth, were based on real things.
Nice.
So there's that one. Anyways, real quick through the list: Rambo, 300, Tombstone, Braveheart, Logan. Yeah, I said it.
Nice.
And Lawless.
Okay, so your top pick is Rambo, your manliest movie.
I'm actually going to make. I think Tombstone has to be my number 1.
Tombstone, I would say, is the most iconic on your list. I wouldn't say the most manly, but I would definitely say the most iconic. Why would you put it as the manliest movie? We're not going by best movies, we're going by manliest. So,
right.
That's a tough pick. Why would you pick Tombstone on there? I love Tombstone, by the way.
You know, and it is a tough pick for me between Tombstone and Rambo, to be honest with you. I mean, I think Kurt Russell nailed it. First of all. And when he's
that whole cast is just freaking amazing.
They are.
Yeah, they're great.
And it's a true story.
Yes. They embellish it.
It's butchered a little bit. There was actually another brother there that they didn't even put in the movie and stuff like that. But
even when you look at the pictures, they look like they did in the actual pictures from the day.
But this group of men went and did a showdown with a bunch of cowboys, and they killed them. And then, true story, after they killed Wyatt Earp's brother, he went around with a group called the Vendetta Posse, and he actually killed a bunch of cowboys. Nobody knows exactly how many, but he was put on trial for murder for one of them. I mean, it's a real story. I mean, this guy, there are people alive now that met him. It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
And
he died in California and Hollywood in like the 1920s or 30s or something.
Yeah, I think the 30s.
Yeah, so there's people that know him. Yeah, it's not super long ago.
Yeah, and so, that's part of it is like this group of dudes really did stand up against, something that was wrong, and they stood up against bad dudes.
So you think that's what makes it a manly movie is that these men stood up to injustice, even though they were outnumbered and outgunned, and they weren't going to let it slide?
Yeah, I think so. And some of the most iconic moments as far as like manly, like, holy crap, that was the manliest thing I've ever seen. For instance, specifically, when he... I know
what you're going to say already. I already know the quote.
When he confronts...
what's his name in the bar?
Billy Bob Thornton.
Yes, whatever the character's name is.
Yeah. Johnny Tyler. Yeah, Johnny Tyler is his name.
Okay.
The Mad Cow, And he confronts him and slaps him in the face a few times, and he's like, skin that smoke wagon and see what happens. And I said, throw down, boy. And then you gonna do something or just stand there and bleed?
Yeah, that's a great quote.
I think it might be the most manliest single scene in a movie I can think of, and the stare in Kurt Russell's eye is just unbelievable. Yeah. I can't believe he's even acting.
He does a great job in that.
Yeah,
and I think Wyatt Earp was also a manly man in that movie because he's got, especially for back then, he's got a terminal disease. But he doesn't just, he could just lay in bed and take it easy, but he doesn't. He goes out and helps his friends, and he dies. I mean, he dies fighting, even though he doesn't have to. I mean, he's got every excuse to not, but he keeps going. Yeah. Now, there's some things I don't agree with in the movie, like he's not my ideal role model for a man. But
Doc Holliday?
Doc Holliday.
All right.
That's what I meant, Doc Holliday, yeah.
What did I say? Right. And he didn't die gunfighting, but he died shortly after.
Yeah. But I mean, he could have easily died in all those gunfights, but he didn't just take it easy. I don't agree with some other stuff that he did in the movie as a man, but I definitely agree with that.
Right.
So, yeah.
And he certainly didn't have to, and you're right. I mean, he was in bad shape.
Yeah.
He was in really bad shape.
And he didn't make excuses. He still stood up for his friends. And what's one of the great lines in that movie where he talks about friends? All right, we had to pause it because I was trying to think of a quote. You want to quote that again, what Doc Holliday says? Because you got it perfect.
I think so. In the scene after they shoot up the main bad guys.
Yeah, the Cowboys.
The Cowboys in the river, and Wyatt Earp just goes out there, guns a-blazing, and Doc Holliday just is right behind him. Goes out there because his friend was in danger.
Yeah.
And then afterwards they're discussing it, and the guy asks him, why he went out there and did that for Wyatt. And he goes, Wyatt Earp is my friend. And the guy says, hell, I got lots of friends. And Doc Holliday says, I don't.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good... He goes out there. It wasn't even his fight. He just goes out there to help his friend out, even though, knowing that he might die. But that's also one of the great quotes in the movie, I'm your Huckleberry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's great, dude. I love that.
Yep.
Oh, and before we move on to another movie, shout out to John Lewis, one of my best friends. He lives up in Idaho. He's actually an extra. He's actually in Tombstone. So shout out to John Lewis, one of my best friends. Love you, man. All right, so anything else on Tombstone before we move to the next one?
That's a pretty good recap.
Right.
I mean, he also, real life, went and chased after an amazing woman that he was in love with, and that's a manly thing to do as well.
Yeah.
And he got her, and they were married for almost 50 years.
And that's a true story, too. They were married in real life, and she was an actress, and they got married. I remember that.
Yeah, all those basic components were true. So
nice. That's cool, man. All right, what else? What's your next movie there? Rambo, we discussed a little bit, but great movie. I agree that if you hadn't mentioned it, I probably would have. That's a freaking great. And I like the original Rambos too, but this one is more true. It's based on a true story. It's more manly, I think.
Right.
It's better. I mean, not that Rambo First Blood's great too, but
it is
great. Yeah.
It is, and I mean, some of the greatest 50 cal
Yeah,
massacres.
It's hard to watch. If you don't like gory movies, don't watch it because it doesn't pull any punches when it comes to that. It's a gruesome movie.
Yeah,
but it's a just movie. I mean, he's fighting for a good cause.
Yeah, he is.
It's not like he's just randomly killing people like in the original Rambo. He actually has a good, legitimate reason to be killing.
Right.
Which, like the Bible says, there's a time for peace and a time for war.
Yeah.
And that's definitely the time for it.
Oh, and these people needed to be put down.
Yeah.
I mean, these are some of the most evil scum on the face of the earth.
Yeah.
And he went in there and took care of business. And
yeah.
I mean, just his resolve when he puts the bow and arrow into the other leader mercenary's face. Yeah. Right, he's got his arrow in the guy's eyeball.
Yeah.
And all his friends have the guns pointed at him.
Yeah.
And he goes, if any of your friends want to shoot, now's the time.
Nice.
Because it'll put the arrow in his eye. And then he gives this little speech, and he's like, none of us there's not one of us that wants, there's not one of us here that doesn't want to be somewhere else. Yeah. But this is what we do. This is who we are.
Yeah.
And we need to go in there and save these people.
Yeah.
And then he says, live for nothing or die for something.
That's a great line, yeah. That's a great line.
It's a super great line. And everyone basically comes under his command in that moment.
Yeah.
And, he's a man about it. He's like, I don't care what you guys do. I'm going in there to save these people. They need to be saved.
Nice.
And that's a great moment.
Yeah, it's a great moment. And a great movie. And one of the things I like about Rambo, I was thinking while you were talking, was that he makes do with whatever he has. Like, he knows how to use all kinds of weapons. But in that movie, his basic weapon is like a big friggin' machete that he made by hand.
That I have an exact duplicate of.
Yeah, he does. And it's pretty awesome. We went out in the wilderness and hacked some stuff down and ate it a couple weeks ago. And that was pretty manly.
It was awesome.
Sucking cactus juice out of a cactus in the middle of the desert. That was a manly thing.
Yep.
But he gets by with very little. I mean, whatever, like in the original movie, he's got a knife with like a compass, and he, does all that stuff. Not that that's super realistic, but even in this movie, he's got like an old 1911 that he pulls out and kills a bunch of dudes with. It's not about having nice stuff. It's about knowing how to use what you have and being a master with it. I like that.
Yeah.
So that's good. It's a manly movie. I will not disagree with that.
Yeah. I do love that scene where he takes down the pirates that are about to, because they're like, give us the girl.
Yeah, because they're going to rape that girl and kill her, or sell her into slavery.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's like, take whatever you want, leave the girl alone. And then they're like, no, give us the girl. And he just freaking mows them down.
Yeah.
But then afterwards, one of my favorite specific moments of that specific scene is he the Christian leader guy, basically the dude in charge, he says, killing is never okay. Like that, I know you think what you did was good, but killing is never okay. And he grabs him by the throat, throws him against the wall of the boat. It's like, who are you? Because the guy asks him, who are you to kill those people?
Yeah.
And he slams him against the wall of the boat. And he's like, who are you? Who are any of you? They would have raped her 50 times and killed all of you. And it's just like...
Yeah. That's a great. And now, another good thing about that movie is he goes through a big personal transformation. Like in the beginning, he doesn't really care about anybody but himself, and in the end, he cares about everybody more than himself. That's that's a manly quality right there.
That was a great way to end the movie with that sort of him having chosen that.
Yeah,
done something for other people.
Nice.
All right, I think I'll probably have to go with Braveheart.
Yeah, Braveheart, good. Okay, Braveheart.
It's hard to you can't discuss manly movies and not discuss Braveheart.
Yeah, Braveheart was a great. I mean, growing up, and we're in our mid-30s, early to mid-30s, so that was an iconic movie. Like when we were in grade school, like that was a movie that like shaped us becoming men. Probably.
Yeah, it was 96, I believe.
Yeah. So we were right. We were right at that age.
We were 12, 13.
Yeah, 12, 13, 14, right where you're starting to explore manhood, and that was a manly movie for sure.
Oh.
And based on a true story again, I think. Yeah.
I mean,
all yours are actually based on true stories now that I think about it.
You know what?
They are.
That's except for Logan.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Logan's the exception.
Oh, yeah. But all the rest of them are.
No. Well, maybe Wolverine is real. We could hope for that.
Wow. He's got cool hair. Yeah. So.
But yeah, that's funny actually that you point that out. They're all based on some kind. Well, the Rambo one is based on a true situation.
Yeah.
Over there.
Well, and the 300 is based on a story that happened, but they took a lot of artistic liberty with that movie. There's not much real in that movie, but the basic premise is based on a true story. So.
Right.
Anyway, where were we? Braveheart. Yeah. So why specifically Braveheart?
Freedom.
Yeah, that's a great. I mean, how do you beat that tagline?
Freedom.
Yeah, he's getting his guts ripped out with a freaking blunt instruments, and he's still, crying for freedom. I mean, it's a great thing.
Yeah. I mean, the man literally gave his life to free Scotland, and he did it. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, he single-handedly started a war.
Yeah.
Against
probably the greatest power, maybe France or England, but he was one of the greatest powers in the world at the time.
It was the greatest power for sure.
So a great underdog story, which everybody loves. I mean, that's manly.
Yeah, and he and
sticking it to the man.
Yeah, he was, and
for a good cause. I mean, they were doing atrocities back then too. They were treating those people like scum, even though they're basically the same people.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a race thing or anything. They were just, because they weren't born noble or whatever, they saw them as beneath them and exploited them, which is always wrong. I should stand up for that. So, good, man. Best favorite scene in that movie? You have one?
Oh, man.
The kilts. That's an iconic one.
That's iconic.
Yeah. I like when he rides in on that horse with that, what is it, a mace with a chain and a ball?
Yeah, and hits that guy in the face.
Yeah,
that's a great scene. I think, you know what? Oh, here it is. Best scene in the movie, in my opinion. And I mean, there's so many great ones, but this one, when everyone's about to go home because they're scared of the English, they're ready for war.
Yeah.
And some of the guys are like, I'm going home. I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
And then he shows up on his horse with the blue.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, you're right. That's the most iconic.
And he goes, one. If you could trade I'm gonna find it.
All right, so we looked up the actual quote so we wouldn't butcher it too bad.
Yeah, so he's giving the speech to the fellas to rile them up, and he goes, "Run, and you'll live, at least a while, and dying in your beds many years from now. Would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?"
Yeah, that's great.
Just a great speech, and then they just kill it.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
that's one of the truths in life, man. No matter how big, no matter how strong you are, one day your body, it's going to rot or it's going to burn.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't last forever, and what you live for is more important than dying.
Yeah. So living a free man instead of a slave.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
Yeah, pursuit of freedom is a worthwhile goal, man.
We watched...
We're watching a movie, and it's based on my favorite book other than the Bible, and the book is called The Long Walk. And it's about a true story about a man that escapes from... he's falsely imprisoned, and he escapes, and he walks from Siberia to India. And it's a great movie, and we're watching that, but I don't remember the name of the movie. But anyway, you look up the book The Long Walk, and you can find the movie. Colin Farrell's in it. But maybe we'll do another episode one day of manly books, too, because there's a lot of good ones. Yeah. But I agree that Braveheart, that's a manly movie.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's going to argue with that.
Yeah. Man single-handedly started a war and took,
And did he also direct that? Was that one of the movies he directed?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did it. Yeah, he's a great all-around actor, director, great Christian. I mean, great dude. Yeah. All right, his next two picks, I got to be honest, I don't care for either one of these movies.
All right.
So, but I mean, I'm not going to, this is his list, so I'm not going to pick on him for it. So go ahead.
We won't spend a lot of time on him, but...
Oh, it's okay, man.
But Logan and Lawless. Logan's an interesting one to pick, I think, but I think it's the best comic book movie I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so different. You go watch every Iron Man and every Captain America and whatever you want. It's all the same movie, like roughly. And they actually wrote Logan backwards in the sense that what they said was, we want to convey emotion and feeling and build a movie around it.
Nice.
And so they actually started with Logan is dying. He's sick. He's at the end of his life. He can't really get better. The world's kind of falling apart. Mutants are almost done. It's this terrible situation. Yeah. But anyways, this man, is essentially facing his own death and, does one last hurrah to help this little girl, knowing he knows he's going to die. Yeah. He knows he's dying. And gives it his all. And there's some epic scenes with Wolverine versus Wolverine that are just amazing. right?
Yeah.
So there's this amazing action, but it's just so real and raw, and it's emotional.
Yeah.
And they got Johnny Cash playing through half the movie. And,
Johnny Cash is manly. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I love me some Johnny Cash. So.
But it's just cool because
maybe I'll have to give it another watch.
Yeah, they meant it to be an emotional movie first, and like a good script.
Yeah.
And an action movie second, and they really accomplished that.
I really like Wolverine. He's one of my favorite superheroes, but I don't like seeing my superheroes old and frail. Like, that's not something I dig.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? Maybe that's why I didn't like it. I don't like seeing my superheroes get old and frail. Like, I don't know. It's kind of sad.
And that's kind of I understand that's why you wouldn't like it,
but
it's also the point of the movie.
I get it.
It's real. It's real and raw, and he's dying, and it's hard. And it sucks,
it is hard. It does suck.
And this is how a man dies. And this man died freaking fighting.
Does he die in the movie? I don't remember.
Yeah, he does.
Oh, okay.
He dies in.
He saves that little girl.
He's holding the little girl's hand when he passes away, and he basically says, "I thought I could never love anybody, but he loves his daughter." Oh. And that's kind of the last thing he says.
Yeah.
And it's like, I found something worth living or dying for, and that was his daughter.
That's good.
It's cool. It's emotional. It just has a different feel from any other movie. It's awesome. Wolverine's a badass, and from start to finish, he's just awesome. Yeah. So anyways,
nice.
And it's well made, and it feels different, and
it's definitely different for a superhero. It's definitely the most different superhero movie. I'll agree with that. It's nice.
Anyways, okay.
So Logan, what's in your next one?
Lawless with Tom Hardy, based on a true story. These dudes made frickin' moonshine in the hills, defied the authorities, who were wrongly and unconstitutionally, denying them their God-given right to make alcohol if they want to.
Yeah.
And they didn't care. They were just like, we're going to do what we're going to do. They actually got shot by the cops. They actually got one of them got their throat slit from ear to ear. And they survived a lot. I think all three of them got shot, and one of them got that. And there was multiple other issues, but they got in a real gunfight with the sheriff guy. They really killed him.
Yeah.
And they didn't go to jail. Nothing. It was corrupt. Yeah. And they did what was right. They came out on top. They lived their life for a little while longer after that. Tom Hardy died. Yeah. After just a few years, but the rest of them went on to live their life. And anyways, it's a cool based on a true story. I know that there's some embellishment, but the basics are there.
Yeah.
And these guys, they're just men, and they stuck it to the man, and
nice.
They did what they wanted to do, and they I don't know, they were men about it. I like it. It's one of my favorite movies I've seen in the last several years.
Nice.
It's well written. It's super well acted.
Yeah.
And it just, you really feel like you're back there in the 20s. So.
Nice.
Yep.
Is that a time period that you liked in the 20s, the Prohibition era?
It seems like a pretty cool time.
Nice. Cool. I like it. All right. Wait, you skipped the 300 though. Did you want to?
Did we skip 300?
Yeah, you did. Did you want to put that one in there?
Everyone knows about 300.
Yeah. The actual story is great. People are kind of shady about the numbers if you look at history, but they were vastly outnumbered, and they fought to the last man, and that in itself is manly. They fought so that the others behind them could live. They fought to save their nation, even though they knew they were all going to die. Yeah. And nobody's going to argue. If you listen to my other episode, I think it might have been the last one I did about the manly warriors throughout history, the greatest warriors throughout history, the Spartans are on there. The Spartans were definitely manly warriors. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. So, that's not going to argue. That's manly. The 300. That's a manly movie.
Yeah.
They embellished a little bit too much. I get it. There was a phase in the movies with that one in Sin City where there was all these bright colors and you know what I'm talking about, that style of movie? And I don't dig that, but they took a lot of artistic liberties, with magic and bombs and stuff, and whatever. And Xerxes is 12 feet tall in the movie. I get it. It's a movie. It's meant for entertainment, but the actual true story is manly. Yeah. And just the raw testosterone in that movie makes it manly, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
So,
those dudes are men for sure.
Yeah. So, no argument there. Manly movies. All right, should we
move on to yours?
Move on to mine? All right. So, No surprise here. If you listen to my podcast, you might be able to guess my favorite movie. It's Passion of the Christ. Obviously, my idea of the manliest man that ever lived is Jesus. Obviously, The Passion of the Christ, I think, is a great movie. I think Mel Gibson did a great job directing it. It actually shows the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus, which is the manliest thing in history. I mean, so if you notice all the other movies, a lot of them that we mentioned, they show the reflections of the superheroes and the heroes that we make in life and the people that we aspire to be and the people that we make movies about. They are reflections of Jesus. Mm-hmm. I would argue that. Like, you look at Braveheart. He died so that others could be free. Mm-hmm. He served his life and was tortured and died, pinned down,
right,
so that others could be free. If that's not a picture of Jesus, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Rambo, being unselfish. He didn't have to go and save those people, but he chose to, even though it wasn't his obligation to. Mm-hmm. He went out of his way to save other people. Yeah. That's a picture of Jesus. Logan, same thing. He died for his daughter. He loved somebody else more than himself. Picture of Jesus. Yeah. I mean, if the 300 even, they all did that. They all did that. Tombstone. Jesuses. Yeah, the Tombstone.
Or Jesus, yeah. I think is the plural.
But as we can see, we whether the people that make those movies are Christians or not, and even before, even if they realize it or not, that's all. I would argue that's all a reflection of Jesus. And Jesus takes it to the next level. He doesn't die just for those who he loves. He dies for those who hate him, for those who despise him, for those who spit on him and shove thorns in his head and insult him. Have you ever been spit on by somebody? It's a tough thing to deal with. And to sit there and die for them and ask the Father to forgive them and hold not their sins against them, they don't know what they're doing. Like, that's a man. Yeah. He didn't have to. He didn't, he chose to do it. He chose to take on the sins of all mankind, and that's the manliest thing you could ever do. And I think that's the best movie that depicts that. So for me, that's my number one pick, The Passion of the Christ.
Right. And no matter what no matter what one's beliefs are, you had this man
changed history more than any other man.
He divides time. What year is it again?
Yeah, it's 2018 after
2018
Christ.
After Anno Domini, year of our Lord. I mean, it's like this man literally divides time.
Like you said, no matter what your religious affiliations are, this man is the biggest influence on history of any man ever. Period. Yeah. So how could you? And I think that's the best movie that has ever shown that. Yeah. Very realistic, very graphic, very hard to watch. I mean, but just because something's hard to watch doesn't mean you shouldn't watch it. I mean,
I think.
Yeah. And Mel Gibson, great job.
I think it's important to watch it.
Yeah, people should know that somebody died for them. They should. Yeah. So that's my number one pick for the alpha male movie. Anything else to add to that before I move on? All right. My next one, and I don't think you've seen High Noon, have you? This is an older movie. It's a black and white movie. I think it was probably made in the 50s. It's got Gary Cooper in it. Great, iconic cowboy movie. It's always listed in like the number one, number two, after probably Tombstone. But it's hard to compare the two because they're so different in time when they were made. But High Noon is basically about this sheriff, and he gets married the day this takes place, and he's riding off into the sunset, as cowboy movies go, and he gets word that these criminals are heading back into town, and they're going to terrorize it. Even though he's resigned, he goes back into the town. Even though it's not his responsibility to anymore, he chooses to take on this band of outlaws, and everybody else is turning their back on him. Nobody wants to help him. Everybody turns their back on him. They all say that he's stupid. They all insult him. Even his wife leaves him. But he still stands up and does the right thing, even though he thinks he's probably going to die. I mean, one of the scenes he's writing his will before the train whistle blows and these bad guys roll into town. Jeez. But he still stands up and takes them all on, even though everybody says, you're an idiot, don't do this, just leave, it's not your responsibility. And nobody's willing to stand up and help him, but they all call him an idiot for standing up against what he thinks is certain death. But he does it because that's what men do. They stand up, like you said, they stand up to injustice. Yeah. And that to me, is one of the greatest movies that show that if you're a man, you do the right thing for the right reasons, not for notoriety, not because you'll get acknowledged for it, not because anybody appreciates it. You do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, even when it's hard. And I think that's one of the best movies that show that. And that's why I put that. High Noon, it's a great movie. It's an old black and white movie. If you like any kind of westerns like that, even if you don't, it's a great movie. So High Noon, very underappreciated, especially probably in this generation, but a great movie.
Cool.
So,
I'll be excited to see it.
Yeah, it's a great movie. And then my next one we've both seen. It's probably the newest one on the list, right? Hacksaw Ridge. It's probably the newest one that any of us have mentioned, right? It just came out. Yeah. So Hacksaw Ridge, great movie based on a true story. The man's a Christian, and if you've listened to my podcast, you know that I'm not a pacifist. I mean, I'm not a pacifist, but that man obviously was, and God calls us all to different things. And that man, obviously, he did what God was calling him to do. Yeah. I don't think anybody will argue with that. And he did more than any man with a rifle on that battlefield did.
Yeah, with no rifle, he saved hundreds of lives.
Yeah, it just goes to show you, if you got God, it doesn't matter, like Samson, if you got the jawbone of a donkey, it doesn't matter what you have or what you don't have.
Yeah.
If you're doing what God wants you to do, he'll make a way. And he goes up there, just like last movie we said, he does the right thing, what he knows God wants him to do, and everybody else that insults him calls him an idiot. It doesn't show the army in a very good light. I mean, they beat him, they persecute him, they call him a coward, they insult him, they stop him from getting married. I mean, just all the bad things that could happen, but he still stands up and does the right thing. And at the end, he's vindicated, which is good. Yeah. But even if he wasn't, he didn't do it for that. And how touching was that at the end when you watch the credits, when it's their actual guides. This is their actual true story. He saved 70-some-odd people.
Yeah.
And he says he came across this man that had blood all crusted up in his eyes, and he couldn't see, and he washed the man's eyes, and he said, "Now I can see." And he said, "If I got nothing else out of that whole war, that was worth it." And that doesn't make you cry, man. I mean, and that really happened. That's a real true story. And I also like that his wife stuck by him through that.
Yeah.
You know, that's a woman. It's hard to find a woman like that nowadays. And that was good. I like to see that. Just a very simple man. He knew what he was about. He didn't make excuses. He didn't have an easy life before that or after that, but he didn't make excuses. He did what God was calling him to do, and just a great true story. Anything to add to that?
No.
Some of the greatest action scenes, too, I think. Some of the greatest depictions, probably next to... How did neither one of us put Saving Private Ryan on our list? Honorable mention to Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah,
great manly movie. But anyway, next to Saving Private Ryan, probably the best World War II depiction of any battle scenes ever, Hacksaw Ridge. Yeah. Great. Mel Gibson, again, he directed that one too, didn't he?
Yep.
He's directed a lot of movies on our list.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mel Gibson. Yeah. Thanks, Mel.
Mel.
Thanks for being a Christian and making good movies. We appreciate that. So that Hacksaw Ridge, great movie, great battle scenes, great message, and a true story. And how could you not? I mean, it's just a great thing. So my next one, a little bit more, we're going to throw back to the 80s movies. So some of the 80s movies are really bad and really good at the same time.
I haven't seen this.
You have totally seen this.
No.
Red Dawn?
Oh, I thought you were going to
No, I'm not going to do I'm going to do that one next. I'm going to put my next pick is Red Dawn.
Oh, okay.
So, Red Dawn, everybody knows. Iconic movie. And it's corny, yes. Is it bad? Yes. Is the acting subpar? Yes. Is it a great movie? Yes. All of the above.
Somehow.
Know? Yeah, it's still a great movie. Like a lot of the 80s
everything
movies.
about it is garbage. And it's still
It's still a great movie. But it's totally unrealistic, totally not true. But you got these high school kids standing up to the Russian government in the height of the Cold War. It's dying for freedom and dying to help other people.
Yeah, it's the next Revolutionary War. I mean, it's the same heart that Americans had during the Revolutionary War.
Yeah,
when 3% of people stood up against the greatest military in the world and won.
Yeah, you got a bunch of young kids that basically don't have any kind of training other than football and hunting, and they stand up to a superpower. Is it super realistic? No, but it's a great movie and a great message.
Yep.
Yeah. So great movie, and a lot of them die in that movie too. They show them dying, and it shows the bonds that are formed in battle, even if it's a totally fictitious story. It shows how tight that gets, and that's a real thing that really happens in war. I mean, you depend on each other's lives. You grow that close bond together. Horrible, great 80s movie, Red Dawn, super manly. I mean, going up against the Russians with hunting rifles. I mean,
and it's easily one of the most iconic.
Yeah,
and
probably the most iconic 80s movie, besides 16 Candles or some girl movie, but definitely the most iconic man movie of the 80s, I think.
Yeah, and Teotihuacan kind of.
Yeah, the end of the world is. So Red Dawn, great movie. And then my next one, he's never seen either, and this is kind of another one that's probably underappreciated unless you're a John Wayne fan. And it's not even very popular for John Wayne movies because it's not a Western. It's called The Quiet Man. And basically it's about this boxer. He kills a man in the ring and he can't deal with it anymore, so he goes back to his home country of Ireland. And he falls in love with this beautiful red-haired Irish woman. And
ooh, redhead.
Yeah, she's... I forget her name, but she's one of the very iconic women of the day back then, but very pretty redhead. And everybody in this movie thinks he's a coward because he won't fight. And they just think that he won't fight and he's afraid to fight. And but he doesn't want to fight because he's a very good fighter. He was a professional boxer, and he knows if he fights, there's a good chance he's going to kill somebody.
Yeah.
So Irish people are all about fighting, and they keep trying to push him to fight and push him to fight. Huh. And what I like about it is he's very reluctant to fight, but when he finally has to, he does it, and he shows that, but every man like that, they should be slow to anger. You shouldn't fight on a whim, but when it's time to fight, you should throw down and fight. And The Quiet Man does that very well. And how could you not throw a John Wayne movie in manly movies? I mean, John Wayne is like, for the generation before us, probably the epitome of manliness. John Wayne.
No question.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah. So, he's in more Westerns, and he probably shaped what a lot of our fathers and grandfathers thought of as man should be, John Wayne. So, even though that's not a Western, it's my favorite John Wayne movie, The Quiet Man. My second favorite is McClintock. That's a good movie too, but he beats his wife in that one, so I won't put that in manly movies.
That's not a manly thing.
Yeah, no, but anyway, The Quiet Man, great movie, great message. It's when they very first started making color movies, so it's one of the very first Technicolor, like the colors real vivid and stuff in it. Very good movie, The Quiet Man. Is that 5 for me?
That's 5.
All right, cool. And this is the one I didn't think of till we were going through our movies, but we both kind of picked this one, Gran Torino. We'll give that one an honorable mention.
It's a very good movie. It's simple. It's forward. There's lots of very manly scenes where Clint Eastwood stands up to bad people.
Yeah.
He's teaching a young man to be a man.
Yeah, it's an older man who's a man's man. A hard-working, gave 20 years of his life, hard-working, taking care of his family. And now the inner city is kind of encroaching on him, taking away his way of life. But it shows an older, manly man showing a younger man how to be a man.
Yeah.
And that's manly.
It is.
What's more manly than that? That's if you're listening to this podcast and you're a man, it's your responsibility to be the right kind of man and to teach the next generation how to be men.
And he gives up his life to save the kid.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Great. Straight up, gets them to kill him so that they all go to jail.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. I was shocked. I was shocked at the end of that movie.
Yeah. Great movie.
I'm sure I teared up. I'm sure of it. But that's an amazing thing to do.
Yeah.
He laid down his life. Straight
for
up.
the ones that he loved, yeah.
Yep.
And that kid, that was nothing to him. He was just some neighbor, wasn't a different race and everything, but he grew to have a relationship with him and realized that kid's life was important and it was worth fighting for. And that's a great message. Yeah. The youth of America is worth fighting for. We're at that age where we're still young, but there's men younger than us. And one of the reasons I started this podcast, if I haven't said it before, is there's a lot of young men in this country that don't have a strong male role model. It's one of the reasons I started this. I was doing men's ministry, and I realized that a lot of the young men that we were talking to, they didn't have that strong male role model. You know what I mean? So that's one of the reasons I started this podcast. What is it to be a man in today's modern society? Yeah. And hopefully this podcast helps at least some. A lot of, I didn't grow up with a father in the house. And I know my father. I'm very thankful for my father. But, he wasn't there a lot of the time growing up. So, I had a lot of role models that were men that weren't the greatest. And hopefully this podcast will help. Anyway, manly movies. So, should we do any other honorable mentions? Any ones that we forgot? We mentioned Saving Private Ryan. That's a classic manly movie.
Ernest in the Army.
Ernest in the Army. Nice. Ernest movies are great. I wouldn't call them super manly, but great movies.
V for Vendetta.
Oh, he likes that one, V for Vendetta. Yeah, that's a great movie.
I think in life in general, Tombstone and V for Vendetta are my two favorite movies.
Favorite movies.
Obviously, V for Vendetta has my favorite message. Yeah. What an amazing message. This guy standing up against the government and against tyranny.
Yeah,
and
Guy Fawkes Day,
dying to free other people. It's a modern
Braveheart.
Braveheart.
Yeah.
So
Not super modern because the movie is set in modern times, right? Or future times, isn't it?
It is.
Set in like
It's
a
roughly
dystopian future. Yeah,
roughly 2035.
yeah, dystopian future. Yeah.
So it doesn't actually ever say that. I did some calculations based on the information in the movie. And,
He's that into it, guys.
Watched it a few times.
He's seen it a few times. Yeah.
Or
As I've seen Passion of the Christ dozens of times. I mean, I love that movie. I fall asleep to it all the time. It's a great movie. It's actually in this computer right now as I'm recording.
Nice.
That's how much I love it.
Yeah, I'm sure I've seen V for Vendetta close to 100 times.
Oh, yeah, I have not seen any movie that much. But,
so quite a few. I love it, but the message is amazing. And
nice. And we were debating this, and I think you won the argument. Manliest actor. You said Mel Gibson. I think I would have to agree with that. No, he's a great actor. He's a great director. We both have his movies on our list.
Yeah.
I mean, I originally picked Harrison Ford. Also very manly, very great. Oh, honorable mentions to Star Wars and all the Star Wars movies and all the Indiana Joneses. But they're a trilogy, so I didn't put them in there. They're not really standalone movies. But Indiana Jones, super manly. Star Wars, super manly.
Yeah, true.
So, yeah, good stuff. But I think
Crocodile Dundee.
Crocodile Dundee. How do we miss
Honorable
that
mention.
one?
I forgot about it.
Is that an 80s movie or a 90s movie?
That was 80s. It was 88.
Oh, so late 80s. Yeah, okay. That's a manly movie. Corny, good, just like all the other 80s movies. Super corny, super good. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a fantastic movie.
What did we say in that podcast where I talked about manly skills? If you're not carrying a knife, like men carry knives.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're a businessman, if you're a lawyer, you need to have a knife in that pocket. And
it's a good word.
Yeah. Oh! Honorable mention, Quigley Down Under.
Oh,
great movie.
That's
now we talk about Australia. Great movie.
We probably need to watch that.
Great message. I mean, guy knows how to use a gun. He doesn't just use it for himself. He puts it to good use.
Yeah.
He saves others. Great movie.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one.
Stands up for people that are being persecuted by other people and stands up to grave injustice. Quickly Down Under. That should have been on my list. That's a great man movie.
That is
I'm kind of regretting I didn't think of that. I might have to bump one of my movies for that. I might have to bump. Sorry, Quiet Man. I like Quiet Man, but I'm replacing Quiet Man. I'm replacing that with Quickly Down Under. That's a manly movie. And Tom Selleck, manly actor. I mean, come on. The mustache, that's manly. That stash is second to none. Yeah.
I like Tom Selleck a lot more than Burt Reynolds.
Who else? Tom Hardy, as far as new modern actors go. Tom Hardy, super manly actor.
He's about as manly as any younger actor.
He plays Bane, right?
Yeah.
Bane, he's a manly actor. I bet he's as manly as you're going to get today.
And then Lawless, he kills it too.
Yeah.
He's a freaking stud muffin.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
What other manly actors can we think of? Oh, Sylvester Stallone.
Well, yeah.
He's super manly. I mean, you got to give it to him.
And Rambo.
Yeah. Great guy.
And,
Rocky. I mean, Rocky's super
manly.
manly. I mean, he's just nobody from Philadelphia or whatever. Philadelphia, right? Yeah. And he just is beating cows in a frozen meat house because that's all he's got. And where he takes on the Russian, he's running up and down mountains in the snow. I mean, that's freaking... Yeah, Rocky's a manly movie.
Rocky's easily one of the most iconic...
movies of the 80s, Yeah, Rocky's a man movie. I'm
glad I remember that because there would have been a lot of upset people going like, you didn't say Rocky, get out of town.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we're not going to remember every movie, okay? So please comment. The best way to comment on iTunes, just go to the comments section and give us a rating and then just leave it in your comments. Hey, you forgot this movie. This is my favorite manly movie. Whatever. Leave it in the comments. So, nice.
Yep, that's a good list, man.
Yeah, good place to end it, I think.
Yeah.
All right, and once again, Steve, where can people find you?
SteveHComedy.com.
Nice. He's if you ever come to Vegas, look him up. He's a great stand-up comedian and a great dude all around.
Yeah, and you can friend me on Facebook too. My name is Steve Halverson, Halvorson. So, anyways, look me up.
Nice. Yeah, great dude, great friend, and a great all-around human being, and I'm honored and privileged to know him. So thanks for joining me, Steve.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, and thanks for listening to the Alpha Male Podcast.